Hello, welcome back to our YouTube channel. And what is this? Is this a show? Is this a fortnightly show of ours?
It's 100% a fortnightly show.
Yeah, and I know that I don't think fortnight means anything here, but
No, definitely not. It's a game, I think. To everyone, they'd probably be most likely.
So if you're not Australian and you're watching this, you're like, what are they talking about? We're talking about the term we use for every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks,
Yeah,
yes. Bi-weekly.
A bi-weekly slash. Yes.
But we don't have a name for this because I guess we do something different every couple of weeks.
Yeah,
but
and we just have the channel, but we don't really have a name for...
Under a loose umbrella.
Yes, exactly. It's not branded. Anyway, for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, you're like, who are these jokers?
Oh, that's true. New audience.
Yeah, exactly. My name is Bona and this is
Ash.
And we are 2 of the 3 co-founders of Capsho. If you've stumbled upon this YouTube channel, you are likely, interested in AI content creation tools, content marketing, basically using AI to make your entrepreneurship journey easier. And this channel is all about helping you do that, especially as it relates to using AI for content marketing, but also other adjacent things because we're super interested in this space. Obviously, we play in the space with our own tool, Capsho, but we're increasingly interested in what else is happening, I guess, in that landscape as well.
Yeah, just again, I think everyone's just going to be interested in like, how can AI help me do things in my business better?
Yes, exactly.
That's, I think, why you're here.
Yeah, exactly. And that's actually could not be, I think, today's video, which we have dedicated to doing a little bit of a deep dive, let's say. And it's a bit of a wild, wild west. So the deep dive is, just us figuring it out right now, is the world of AI content detection tools.
Yeah.
Which has become increasingly, I guess, topical because using AI to do content creation has really kind of exploded, let's say, in the last year or so, in the time that we've been in the space. So increasingly, I guess there's a lot of maybe concern, maybe some curiosity about what that means for the kind of content being put out there and how people can put a lot out there, and platforms like Google, I guess, becoming a little bit cracking down on content that is purely AI generated.
That's the thing. You kind of see, it feels like it ebbs and flows around, we want AI content, or this is how it can kind of be produced.
Yes.
Quicker, faster.
Easier.
And then actually know if that's the case and there's too much of it.
Yes.
Then this is the penalty you're going to face with your SEO, and this is how to prepare yourself for now a AI kind of world, or how search will look with this content kind of augmented in it. So it feels like a space that, no one's really got a handle on. Even us being in it, it doesn't feel like there's a definitive way forward.
Yep.
Or it always feels sometimes the goalpost shifts, given where you hear maybe something in Google is probably one we're going to quickly touch on, is you hear something with how their search engine is going to, handle AI. And then, I think it was almost like a month ago, we were doing something and like just their AI tool just popped up out of nowhere
on our editor. Yeah, exactly.
And it was like, is this us? Is this?
Did we deploy something overnight?
Yeah, and it's like, no, Google's trying to help us inside Capsho.
Yeah, like their AI tool is going to help us edit. So it's an interesting time for consumers of content.
Yes.
creators of content, and we're also both at the same time. We're creators and consumers.
Yep.
So to that point, that interesting balance of using AI to help with that process, but also policing it in a way, because then I think if we swing too far to using AI, then it's just going to be very homogenous, unhelpful content that then kind of sets us back as humanity, but just I think just gets in the way of enjoyment levels as well.
It's just that same but different.
Yeah.
And I think that's, I mean, we'll get to it around, I guess, the different styles, but it does feel that homogeneity is there if we don't.
Great word.
Yeah, and I nailed it. I was really just, maybe everyone could see my brain ticking over to say, get all of the syllables out and don't stumble on this.
No, I liked how effortless it was. It didn't feel like you were, being like, use the word, but then now I've called it out and had a whole discussion
I've
around
broken down my mind. And so we've spent so much time. I should have stumbled on and just kept going.
Exactly.
But if we don't enter the process, so if we just rely on AI and we just kind of push it out, which is probably where I would say the kind of the threats around, hey, we're going to penalize just AI content, et cetera, kind of comes in, because at least what we're trying to do there is hopefully just put those smoke signals out to people going, don't just go into ChatGPT, write an article about content creation or SEO or, social media marketing, and then post it up like you're an authority. Because if we all keep doing that, all we're going to do is have just ChatGPT's understanding of that out in the world.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's not good for us.
Yeah, and that's why that brings a fair point around, we spoke about Google, but also even social media platforms like LinkedIn, which let's say is one of the, I guess, like premier platforms that is all about thought leadership and, to your point, encouraging people to share their expertise and things like that. But they have now a very, it's very strong, their suggestion to use their AI tool that helps you create posts. And I've not used it, so if you have, definitely let us know, which to me feels a little counterintuitive to their whole proposition around, obviously, share your expertise and share who you are and be a thought leader and be known as a thought leader. So I think it's just a really, really interesting space that we're navigating.
It's a real knife edge for everyone, just to kind of go, well, we don't want to be in the camp of like spam the platform.
Yep.
So please come here and share your expertise. But hey, that takes a lot of work. So why don't we write it for you? Okay, thank you so much, LinkedIn. You're right. I really want to, but this 20, 30 minutes I do not have. But in 5 minutes, you've pretty much got it. It's close enough. Let me post it.
Exactly. Let me just see how it does.
And so I think that is the hilarity where all of these are becoming more prevalent, where like we use Notion. Yep. Notion has, would you like to help, write, XYZ? And they all just kind of start to pop up more and more. So it's really hard to get away from it. There is no, unless you are super dedicated to just write everything from scratch, I can imagine that everyone will be using AI in some capacity.
Yes.
So it's then really navigating. That's probably where the curiosity came from, going, okay, it's going to be in the world. It already is. So where do these kind of detection tools come into it? Because we hear all of this, but there's probably not a lot of chatter as much around the tools. Like I wouldn't, off the top of my head, I wouldn't have known any of them until I did the Google searches.
Yeah, well, when you brought it up as even a concept, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense that would exist, but I didn't even think of it.
No, and so you're kind of going, let's just do a Google search on them. Let's try and kind of work out which ones are best.
Yep, how they work, how they assess what's AI.
Yeah, and then kind of see, is this good or bad? Like how good a job, to your point, do they do? Does this make our writing better in terms of like an AI human kind of blend? It's just like almost just kind of starting from the point of let's just put some stuff into them, see what we get out, and then kind of make a determination what the hell these are actually doing.
Yeah, and given we were going to the Wild Wild West, we just said let's try to baseline this. Let's try to be as systematic as we can.
Say we put our cowboy hats on. We got the boots.
We really should have. For the next one, I feel like this is just the start of this conversation. So progressively, we'll start getting dressed up increasingly over the series. Actually, that probably won't happen. But anyway,
it's a nice thought. Maybe for Halloween.
That's true. Halloween's around the corner, depending on what time you're watching this. Yeah. And Ash always threatens to dress up for Halloween, but never does.
Because as Australians, we don't understand Halloween. We didn't grow up with it. It's become definitely obviously more prevalent back home. More of a thing, yeah. But I've never dressed up in my life until I was like an adult.
But I think coming up with Halloween costumes in your mind is fun.
Is a lot of fun. because no one wants to do group costumes with me, but we've gone too far.
Anyway, so I will try to get this back on track. I'll probably fail. But yeah, given that, we were like, okay, let's try to baseline it. And what we sort of thought about was to say, okay, we've spoken about the use of AI. Likely, if you are a content creator, you're going to fit into one of three buckets. You're either like FAI. Can I say that? FAI.
You just did,
I am, I create all my content from scratch. It is something that, I take a lot of pride in, or maybe I even get paid for. Yep. So you're in this bucket of like, no way, I'm 100% human. Everything you see that I put out, blog post, podcast episode, et cetera, is all just 100% human, 100% me. So if that's you, then you're probably not watching this video anyway, because you're not interested in the space. And then we do have a lot of people now increasingly just kind of, because it is so easy to get AI to generate your content, they're just kind of like playing a volume game and just putting it out there. So they're probably not interacting with their content too much. Feels like a dangerous space to play, but let's be honest, there are a lot of people doing that. And then I think those of you watching this video likely in the middle, which is almost this group of people, pragmatic business owners generally, who know content creation is part of your business, but it's not your entire business.
Yep.
And you are augmenting that process with AI, maybe with a tool like Capsho in a post-production process, maybe to help you come up with ideas, or you're still creating your own content. Lots of different ways, maybe using ChatGPT to clean it up. There's lots of different ways that you're likely using AI in your process. And it's just that kind of maybe grayish area now as to when you look at a piece of content and how much time are you spending on it to make it sound like you, and how much do you quote unquote care how close to it it's been if you were just 100% write it or create it. So kind of like maybe there's a bit of a scale in there, but that's probably the group that you likely fit in. So what we decided to do to start to baseline this process is we are going to be featuring two creators who we know definitely fit in that pretty much create your own content from scratch bucket. So Jay Kunzo and Amy Porterfield, they're both well-known creators. So we're kind of going to be using their content to baseline for this video, and then we'll just see how it goes.
Yeah, really the fascination just was actually if you're putting it in there, like you kind of are thinking, okay, how much time do you want to spend? I always think like to make it sound like you. Yes, that's great. But at the same time, does your audience care?
Yeah, that's the other question too, exactly.
Do I want to read a fully AI written piece? Do I want to read a AI human, or do I want to read a human piece? Can I discern even the difference as an end consumer? Or will it actually get better? Will it get worse? That was the fascination for me. So yeah, let's hand it over to ourselves and see what we found.
And we're handing over to ourselves because we did record this.
Again, that's it. We're a big advocate of the unlive method.
Ash loves the unlive method.
We didn't mention it up top, but obviously we're here live with you now. We recorded this a few days ago because again, the curiosity was too much for us.
It overcame us, and we said, you know what, we have to record this now.
We have to do it now. And then we were like, well, we've got to jump on and show the people. So we're going to do that. We're going to hand over to ourselves and we'll come back and we'll chat after. Okay, so to probably kick this off, we want to set a baseline. So we know that Amy Porterfield and Jay Kunzo's content is written by them.
Yep.
So we wanted to like throw that through and be told, something we already know.
Confirmed. Yeah, get the confirmation.
100% human written. So that was what I started with, taking the email from Amy and taking Jay's social content and some of his kind of blog work, putting it through some of the different tools. So the tools that I guess I came across, did a simple Google search, just went, AI detection tools, whatever was on the first page, and that we could kind of access easily through their kind of free front-facing platform, not needing to go into too much detail. So the good thing for both of them, pass with flying colors.
So pretty much across the board, all tools agree this is definitely human written.
They did, but with and what we will get into again, probably the somewhat, I don't know whether arbitrary in this case, but I've got them here, 100% human on one tool, 97 on another, so 78 on one,
okay,
and 100% on another.
So we had a couple of outliers there.
Couple of outliers, but you'll see later why I almost believe they're not, I guess they're outliers if you look at the four numbers, but when you start to measure within tool, it shows that actually I feel pretty confident.
I see.
Based on what we're seeing with the AI versus human written content.
They might just be using different ways to assess how human a piece of content is, but at least the scores are within the tool are relatively
consistent.
reliable and consistent.
Yes.
Okay,
We're not going, actually it turned out an AI piece of content scored better than Amy's email.
It's like teachers at school, some teachers you knew were just more lenient.
Just hard markers. Other people are just going, as long as you turn something in, I'm going to get at minimum, a B.
Yes, exactly.
I said that for the American audience, but we never really had that. So I was like, I wonder what a B is.
What's a B? Is that like 70?
70, 75 out of 100?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway.
But that
it's
is
been a while since we've been in school.
What it feels like with some of these tools where, you could probably get under the hood and find out what they are using to determine their scores.
Yep.
But that's time consuming. It's not very easy. It's not accessible, which probably makes me think a lot of the times then it's not that, I want to say scientific,
Yes.
It is a little bit kind of finger in the air stuff. And I feel like that's where maybe this space is at the moment.
At least for now, yep.
We started with these guys. So we kind of go, okay, cool. We know human content is being detected as human. It's not, is it a false positive into AI?
Yep.
So we feel really good. So now let's get into what it looks like when we use ChatGPT to write an email, which we know is some of the most human style of writing.
Yes.
Because it's very personal. You've built up a list. These people have given you their trust to receive your content.
And it's kind of like a one-on-one kind of mode as well.
Very much so versus putting out, I guess a more factual blog post.
Yep.
So we used an email and I took the subject line from the email that Amy had sent you. Mm-hmm. So I was going, okay, at least it's given some guidance. It's not trying to be Amy. It's not doing anything like that. It's just
But that's the minimum context you've given it to say.
Write an email for me and that this for this subject line.
Yep.
Fill in all the blanks with whatever you want because I want a thing. So everything that will flash up is fully fictitious. I've not tried to put it. I think it decided to pick Alex, a good, strong, solid name.
Yep.
And just made up an offer and did everything like that.
So this is almost the opposite. This is like a 100% AI generated piece of content.
This has got no human interaction. It's just given that one initial prompt. So that was the starting point. Again, how did these AI detection tools perform with something like that? Mm-hmm. And I think this is where it starts to show the arbitrariness of how they're actually scoring it.
Okay.
So if we kind of have a look here, GPT. Now, am I saying names? I was about to say. I was putting it out there.
As in names of the tools.
Of the tools, because I didn't put it out there in terms of how they scored.
Yes,
Amy. But let's do it at this point.
I think so because they're out and about offering their services.
And we're gonna flash up the screenshots of the actual of the scores here. We just don't want to know which of them rated Amy's down slightly.
Oh, in the original email. Yeah. We'll be good software sort of like peers and not do that. Yeah.
Did a good job not needing to beep it out afterwards. But yeah, this is where we saw say, okay, cold ChatGPT, not seasoned as well. This is just a base account that I have, which I don't use. So it has no knowledge of my tone of voice, anything like that. GPT-0, 95% AI. So what you'd expect.
Yep.
So that is very much, okay, great. It is a fully AI written piece of content. Mm-hmm. Boom, it detects it.
Yep.
Gives me back that score.
Yeah.
0 GPT, 83%.
And those are two different softwares. GPT-0.
Very confusing. But
0 GPT.
I don't know who led.
Capsho and ShowCap.
Yeah. But who led also in that? Did someone come out and we went, you know what, ShowCap's the wrong way?
Yeah.
We needed to flip it and be Capsho. Was it GPT-0 or 0 GPT? If anyone can answer that, I'd love to know as well.
Yes, exactly. So 0 GPT, we got
83%
AI. Okay. Yep.
Then another one came across, Scribber, 73% AI.
Okay.
So at least great there.
Yep.
They've kind of gone up the higher end of the spectrum, which is what we'd hope. Found another one, Writer. Now I think Writer, maybe this is they've done a good job here. They've put out a AI detection, I guess, tool that's free. I don't think that's necessarily what they do. I think Writer, given the name, is a writing generative AI tool because they were very positive. 19% AI. They were 81%. This was written by a human. And then Winston AI, another one I came across, which through some other testing did relatively well. But in this case, ChatGPT did amazing, 5%.
Wow, it scored better than on Writer
even on Writer.
Wow, okay.
So even if you look at that, using 5 of these different tools available, we got a range from 95% AI to 5% AI.
That's crazy.
That's pretty
for something
wild.
that was just very, very cold prompted from AI.
Yes.
Yeah.
With no other context. So so for me, right there shows, okay, how trustworthy are these for making decisions?
Yes.
You know, they're not trying to be any way untoward, saying, actually, I'm doing it for this reason. It's just their, you know, metric, whatever is driving their tool. But it's more just like, actually, it feels like whatever tool I landed on first is going to then start altering my decision making going forward.
Exactly, especially if this is the only thing you're kind of using to make those decisions.
Like,
interesting.
If I'm landing on, is it 0GPT? No, I think it was GPT-0.
GPT-0 was the first one.
That was the first one, 95%. So if I come across that, I think I'm going to be like, well, I need to make this sound.
Yep.
I need to make some edits.
Yep.
Okay, whatever that looks like, whatever form that takes, I need to get this score down.
Oh no.
Well, score down by way of like, I want to decrease my AI score.
Yes.
So I need to go from 95, and I'm wanting to get as close to 0, I guess. You know, like we all are. If we're score chasing here, that's the goal. If I was starting with Winston, I might be ready to publish here because I'm like, no one's going to pick up. This sounds just like me.
My name's not even Alex, but that's fine.
Maybe some small tweaks in here. I'll put my service in, but it's done a brilliant job.
Yes.
So for me, I'm like that even a very interesting point there is to kind of go like, if you are looking at using these tools or what people are using, it really then potentially can alter in a positive or negative way how you're approaching it.
Yes.
Then getting to the question of going, well, should that even be coming into it in terms of how we go about this creation editing process?
I think that's the thing. Anytime you're using, whether it's tools, and for some of us maybe it's, you know, other people because we're, you know, delegating some of this stuff to our team. So as a business owner who happens to also create content, I think this is one of those decision points and one of those learnings where it's around, this is why we cannot just make decisions just based on one factor.
Yes.
The whole idea is to take these things as an input and then hopefully not get into a point of analysis paralysis with this stuff, or make the wrong decision because you're an action taker and you've just taken one thing into consideration versus overall what's actually going to be good for you and your content. Yeah.
So for me, obviously, I do love a bit of gamification. The scoring is brilliant, you know, so
it works. It works. Yep.
So now then I thought, well, okay, well, what if someone did get into this scenario and you want to chase the score? And obviously the score being, I want a more human percentage and I want a less AI percentage.
Yep.
So work some back-end magic in terms of setting up something within ChatGPT to go, okay, this is how we can maybe make the writing more human. Not trying to be me, nothing in particular, just saying, hey, I need this to kind of score better.
So to clarify, using AI to make your content more human, your AI-generated content more human, potentially.
Yes, because I'm taking the approach of like, we're going to stay in the full AI world.
Love it.
Whether that's right or wrong.
Yeah, love it.
We'll chat about that later. But I'm using AI to make AI think I'm more human, ultimately. That was the goal. So we gave another pass. I went, okay, same email. We're not doing anything different. We're just going to iterate on this piece. Essentially the editing process. So breaking it down with the same. Now I'm going to kind of maybe limit it to 3 because if you kind of start with like Writer giving us a very human score and Winston AI, you can only imagine I just got more human.
You got 100%.
And that's not really helping because we know that it's not a human piece of content. So them giving me those scores is actually not helping my process. So a little bit for me would be, well, actually, I know that this was not written by me. Doesn't matter that you're telling me that you think that this was, I'm actually not going to buy into it.
It's like,
or at least I'm that type. That's how I would approach creation.
Yeah, it's apparently telling you that your audience is going to believe this is human, but then it's not you at all. So why would you go down that?
I would get a second opinion. Like a doctor, I would go, you know what? I'm thinking that,
I'm loving your positivity, but I'm just going to check.
I heard the bone snap. I think it's more. So put it through the tools again. Now, interestingly enough, the other three, GPT-0 took me up to a 99. So it's going actually, you're trying to pull the wool over my eyes here.
I know what you're doing
99% AI. 0 GPT was definitely more positive, 45%. So he's starting to see that real drop from 83 to 45. And Scribble went from 73 to 42.
So it's going, okay, now it feels like 43% AI generated.
Is about the realm. It's a real 50-50 toss up. And like with most of these tools, they're really kind of, I guess, breaking it down at like a sentence level. So, you know, you start to see the breakdown of like, this sentence is, you know, blah human versus, you know, percentage written by AI. So it's definitely, clearly the process in ChatGPT has done a better job at starting to make more sentences sound like a human. whatever
but
that means.
I mean, I'm very intrigued that GPT-0 went the other way.
Yeah,
And I think I have a hypothesis as to why, but I love this. I love this.
So again, if you're score chasing, am I happy with going up and getting a worse score by one of the tools?
Yes.
Or at the 50-50 stage, for me, probably, obviously I'm going to start reading it and I'm like, okay, look, what are the changes that have been made? Now that's also part of the challenge here. Because I'm not actually writing this, I'm relying on AI to determine what is human.
Yep.
Now I might have a view, it might have a very different view, but I'm not necessarily giving that because again, that all takes time.
Yes.
I've put in some elements to get this kind of score out. But again, let's say if we play the game of score chasing, I imagine we never really did a lot of it, but the thing that always pops into my mind was like, I think Yoast having that SEO plugin, people would bring that up a lot with us to say, actually, they're making these changes because you're trying to get to, was it like a yellow score, maybe turn a yellow score into an orange.
Around things like readability and stuff. Yes. Yeah. It's almost like the traffic light system. It's definitely not red, but I'd like to be more green than yellow.
Exactly.
Like
the pursuit to get as close to green as possible.
Yes.
So that's what this felt like. So then I went, okay, we're going to apply it again, see if anything changes.
Yep.
We start to see the first shift in GPT-0. So now this is probably where I go, like it's probably it's got a more stringent marking criteria.
Yep.
It pegged it at 70% AI and 30% human. So still a big jump given where we started.
Yeah.
0 GPT is coming down to 27 now AI and starting
45.
to make that determination that it's most likely human. And Scribber's come down to 13%.
Nice.
So
that's huge.
At that point, I'm like, okay, I'd be pretty happy given the amount of time that I'm putting into this, which is obviously, we're not putting hours in, but we're putting a good, 15, 20 minutes into crafting this with no real, let's say, human interaction by way of editing.
Yeah.
So got the original, had the first version of what now is more human, had the second version, which is again, even let's say more human to compare. Well, if you then read it, what do you think, Bona? So kind of giving you these options, what does actually Bona think?
Yeah.
Given that you are our resident copywriter.
Yes.
And, content
and
chief.
Things.
Yeah.
Content chief.
Content chief.
It's like a little
bureau chief. No. Bona. Tell me what you thought.
But this is where I was like, definitely I could tell. I mean, you'd obviously given me the background. We knew this was going to be AI generated. But what was really interesting about the first one was that it was, and this is what I find, I'm sure everyone who does use ChatGPT very cold, you'll find any output it creates is quite short. And, that's not always a bad thing because brevity is, I think, definitely a skill. But it usually is lacking some context to kind of like, be quite promotional, social media, email and things like that. And that's kind of pretty true to form. So in my mind, the scores made sense where, it's ranking pretty high on the AI. On the AI side of things. What I noticed in the second email was that it kind of basically didn't change too much of the structure. It did extrapolate a little bit and expanded on it a little bit, but it was just a more casual and almost hypier version of the first one. Clearly, it's realized that, okay, well, humans probably do take a little bit more time and, talk about more stuff, but there wasn't too much of substance there. I thought that was, and hence this is why I was like, I wonder if GPT-0, the first one, had some of that intelligence built into it to look for that because it's not just about, speaking more casually. I think the first version was already a little bit more casual, and hey, more casual may not be your tone of voice, just what we were talking about earlier, to say that might not be about, being more human as it relates to where being more human is more like me. So that's why I was like, oh, that's interesting, but I can also see why, it had some more human, colloquial, casual, parts to it. So I can see why the scores did start to, at least into 0GPT and Scribber, change. What was interesting about the third version, I thought, that ChatGPT created was that it wasn't just doing those obvious things, but it actually, because all of this content is made up, it actually, in a very, I thought, quite, impressively human way, started to position the bonus that came with the offer and adding a bit of a human element to it. So the whole premise of the email was, hey, I launched this without an email list. I'm kind of just doing this. You're part of my community, so you're the first to unlock it. And you can see that they've woven a made up story, but still a human angle nonetheless to say, hey, because I'm just doing this kind of, as you know, I'm a bit of a mess or whatever, but, I trust you guys. And also as part of that, I'm offering this bonus because it is pretty much off the cuff. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Now, whether that's reality or not, because this is all a made up scenario, that was quite nuanced in terms of for AI. And maybe I just don't have the highest of expectations. But the way it wove that together, it did make the email longer, but it wasn't just longer for the sake of being longer. It added a human dimension.
It kind of had a point. Like you could tell it was trying to weave this in from that brief of, I want this to be a far more human piece of writing.
Exactly. A bit more storytelling that went into it, even though it wasn't a long story. So I think that is probably what really was more of a needle shifting move.
Yes.
And if you're currently writing emails and you're not incorporating stories, but they don't have to be long stories, but that human storytelling element, AI or otherwise is probably not performing as well, because people get a lot of promotional emails. They get a lot of emails asking them to do this, buy that, save this, get in before this, and it can be very overwhelming. So those are the things that do get cut through.
Yep.
So I think that was the biggest thing where I was like, okay, I see what's happening here, and it works.
Yeah.
And then I think it's just the next step would be to take that and obviously make it your own.
Okay. So on the whole, so out of the three, you're kind of, what would your 1, 2, 3 be out of, straight, just ChatGPT, no real work done to it, to that first kind of like trying to make it a little bit more human in its writing, and then the second pass at that?
Yeah, so I would say the gold medal has to go to the final version with the humanized, the second round. I would say silver goes actually to the original. I would rather start with that than what it gave me as the first pass of humanized, because then I would have to, at least the first one was shorter, to the point, and I could build on it in a more human way, versus having to, pull back some of the stuff that it thought would help humanize it.
Yep.
So that's how I would.
So you were really then you given that, I would say I'm liking GPT-0, given it kind of took that path as well. Like it determined very similar kind of reasoning. Have to unpack and go back now and go under the hood. We're not endorsing anything here. Definitely there's no endorsements.
Especially because we're so influential in the space, we wouldn't want 100%. This to be taken as our endorsement, our official endorsement.
But my early finger in the air is telling me I'm going to, GPT-0
Yeah, if I had to choose,
is the most Bona-like. that's at least what we found out today.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that's definitely the interesting space to be that. Like with this, you've been given a great starting point to then continue to make those edits. Now, again, I'd almost go like the arbitrariness of these scores does not really mean something is written human or not.
Yeah.
In terms of like, is it actually well written, or like is it a great read? I think really probably the main concern is the end consumer, your audience, actually enjoying what they're actually consuming.
Yes.
That's what it really needs to come down to, not whether this kind of score is high or low. So definitely interesting to see that AI can kind of play some part in getting it to a better position. But I think we'll hand it back to ourselves, and we'll talk about it a little bit more.
Over to you, Ash and Bona.
Now, I appreciate that we did that.
Yeah.
It
did help.
It didn't take me by surprise like it does sometimes. I'm going to say that's the only thing. If anyone is subscribing to the Unlive Method, if you've also been in that scenario where you thought you came back live and it was just you coming back on the pre-recorded video, and I don't know if the cat and the dog playing in the background is coming through. It's just all happening here.
You can tell
right
it's
now.
very much
it's live now. We're back live. This is the beauty of going live. But I would love to know, when people are either watching this now or obviously later, what did they think of Bona's hat? What a great little addition that was. Chief Content Officer. And that's why I'm a big fan of Neil. Neil, shout out to our man. That took me by surprise and made me have a good old chuckle.
It was a nice little detail, I will admit. Even if it was at my expense, I will admit it was a good little detail. So that's the first thing we want feedback on, but also...
Well, it's good to know that he's listening. You know what I mean? Man has picked that up, and he's custom graphics. That's what we... just elite. But fascinated to kind of get everyone's thoughts then, really, of where we landed with that idea of, should we be score chasing?
Yeah.
Like, it's almost probably the beauty of these tools is that, like, we touched on it, of the idea of like SEO scores. We all love a score. We all love a color scale.
Even when we know what they're doing, we're like, oh, it's working.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know how to game it. And then you're doing stuff that you might not believe in just to get the numbers. And that's what it feels like there, where it's like, is it actually in our best interest to try and get AI to help us become more human, which, was that version, which again, it could kind of successfully do it because that was, the gold medal.
Yes.
But the fact that like in the interim step, it didn't actually help. Like your silver, your second preferred was just the original one. It's kind of like, what's the trade-off to time and efficiency to actually, get a good score, and does it matter?
Exactly. And then kind of to take a step back and think, well, what is actually your purpose with the piece of content? Because I guess what AI does, using it in this way, is that it does kind of like more holistically, I guess, like own the asset. And kind of like, it's going to put in the things that it's going to try to write like you and be like you. And then, you kind of like focus on the score regardless of which tool you use, because we were speaking about, you kind of just want to, it's like a relative scores as opposed to absolute. But then you kind of lose, I think, sight of what you're originally trying to do with the piece of content, and who you're trying to be, I guess, essentially, because hopefully writing for an audience that through your content gets to know you better, because the whole point of content is to build know, like, and trust.
Yep.
And that can kind of get muddied a little bit if you're just kind of like, score chasing, and you've lost track of that's what you're ultimately looking to do.
Well, that's the thing where you're probably going to see some inconsistencies coming through, because even, the AI is trying to do what it thinks is human. And I guess this is the fascinating part for me, where but even not so much what we tested, but even in the lead up, when I've kind of just like, it's piqued my interest over probably the last 6 months. Every now and then it kind of comes across my mind, or I've seen an article. So I always just test it and play to go, okay, cricket was the one. So cricket, again, if
what do you mean cricket was the
is the thing that I use as my base.
Okay.
Because if I guess if you've got a piece of content, great.
Yeah.
Right. But like we did, I'll just go, okay, I need to synthetically create something. So I'm like, just write for me something about, and cricket always pops into my mind. Now,
makes sense.
All of our US viewers, the baseball of Australia.
Oh, wait, they don't play cricket here?
No, not really.
Okay, sorry.
You think cricket isn't
not as big. Okay, yes,
it's becoming a thing because they did hold the T20 World Cup in the US.
Maybe that's what I thought to
and
be
so
like,
the US
it's more of a
has
thing.
won some games.
But that's recent.
And now the cat is sneezing on the other side of this camera. It is just all happening.
I tried to.
You try to keep moving, and it's like we have to call it out, even if the people can't hear it.
Yep, there is. We have a cat sneezing just opposite, just behind us.
So I'll use that. So I'll just kind of get ChatGPT.
Okay,
and again, it's well written.
Yes.
And when it kind of makes it more human, you can tell as it gets further along the path, it starts to break. Again, it's almost the randomness where it stops using good grammar, structure. So it feels like if I paid attention in school and executed the English language at a high level, I would be penalized now, because that is what AI probably
You're almost
has
writing
been trained
potentially
on.
too perfectly.
It's too good.
Yeah.
AI and all these detectors are saying, actually, no, the beauty of humans is your almost creativity to not follow the rules.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what we're almost looking for, is the shifts and how far away from the almost perfect guidelines without being absolutely crazy, maybe.
That makes a lot of sense to me, because I guess we were talking in the video about just, the language becoming a bit more casual might be like a really obvious thing.
Yes.
But this is a less obvious version of that, which is, to your point, like punctuation, like, a little bit more random structure, because when we communicate, it's
just
not
in the middle, starting with like a 3-word question, then answering it, going, well, that's not what we should be doing, but that's what we do.
Yes.
And almost then that is your style. So as you said, everyone, when they're kind of taking, again, almost like what you learned and you've adapted it because you don't want to be the same as everybody else.
Yep.
How do you kind of bring that to life? Hence that start with a really great base, which is what AI is there for, and then just go ahead and make those edits yourself.
Yeah.
You're probably going to make it happen quicker than trying to wrangle AI
to
be more human, so you have a more human starting point, but then you still have to apply the edits that are you.
Which kind of feels moot,
because it kind of will know what you want, even if you kind of give it examples and it learns you, but it won't ever get to that point because it's always battling against wanting to be perfect.
Exactly. So I think that's right. It's almost like, and generally what I found in my experience, at least leveraging AI to create written content, is that, generally, it seems to sort of, especially as a tool like Capsho that does self-learn over time, it kind of does get the basics right. And it almost gives you a blank canvas that's a lot more evolved. And you can actually almost see, or it's a bit more illuminated, the places you do want to spot edit.
Yes.
And that's really, to your point, even with the cricket example, probably where, you would probably make those, like whether it's certain expressions you have or just, certain like more like incorrect, grammatically incorrect maybe, or like what's not structurally sound, but that's just what you like to do to make that yours. But I think it just, again, you just have that ability to spot edit, which I think is the human in you actually doing it, but it's also going to make it more enjoyable, informative, more engaging for your consumer, and ultimately everybody wins. So I think if there was a correct way to do it, it feels like that seems like the best path for most of us.
Yeah, and because you're doing that, because you've built up your audience, that's been your style, so you know that they like it.
And they're used to it,
and that's why you're doing it. Whereas if I came in with my style, you're going, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
You would have to edit it in a different way. So that's why I think it is really that we started with, is it AI? Is it AI augmented with human? Is it 100% human? I mean, we built Capsho to be in that AI augmented with human, and even going through this process, it just continues to consolidate and solidify that position where I'm not a writer. It does feel like kudos to Jay and Amy and all these people.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Get on board with the augmentation, because again, it's too much time. I imagine regardless, it is too much time, and I know that would take me. But yeah, you just put out this just mindless AI stuff. It is going to be eventually soulless. So
and nobody wins out of that.
Nobody wins.
Yep.
Spend a bit of time, put it in, and that's the score chase. Like, to me, that's the score chase. It's naturally going to get a better score because you have put your personal touches, your style onto that AI starting point. So just sleep easy that the score has got to a better place without needing to constantly put it through here because you're trying to game the system.
Yes, exactly. No, I love that. So it very much seems like we're probably just scratching the surface, something to keep an eye on, especially like, the usage of AI just becomes more and more, I guess, integrated in how we do things. So we're very interested in the space. It'd be interesting to see how the different tools kind of maybe or maybe not start to agree, or maybe not how regulated this space really becomes. So yeah, super fascinating. But yeah, if you are interested, if you have been wanting to integrate, I guess, AI into your content creation, more from that, helping it augment you so that you can have more capacity cognitively to show up in a more human way with your content, definitely give Capsho a try if you haven't already. You can just go to www.capsho.com and start a free 14-day trial. That will give you plenty of time and also 120 minutes to experiment with some content that you have already, and see what it creates for you. And then, let us know how you find it. And I guess also how it does against AI content detectors, maybe.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyway, so we'll be back in 2 weeks' time.
We'll be back in 2.
It's with a very exciting topic.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of being organized. We actually know what we're going to do, or at least I know what we're going to do.
Hopefully it's not a surprise to me. No. I think we're in agreement.
Oh, 100% in agreement. Why don't you tell the people if you're going to forward sell this?
Say it at the same time. No, the other space we've been looking at as it relates to AI tools is obviously in the space of image generation. So that's been kicking around for a while. I know that's something that you've been experimenting with for a while with some pretty fun, experiences. But that's something that we're going to be bringing to you in terms of some of the tools that are out there, with basically a lens of how you might use it, not just to create like fun, fantastical things maybe with your kids, but really how you might use it for creating content for your business.
I think that's super fascinated cool by. It's like when I got into it, it was just more to be creative and to muck around for everything outside that we would do. Never really a ton using for Capsho or whatever we're up to. Whereas now it's kind of getting to the stage where there's so many more options out there, and we're going to unpack those, delve into it to go, okay, great that you can create a cat eating a raspberry cheesecake while in a hot air balloon. That's all great and fantastically weird. But how about if I want to add something to my blog?
Yeah, exactly. I would just like a header or something. Yeah, for now, but that's almost harder to do sometimes. So we're interested to see where that's evolved to and what we can create. So excited about that.
All right,
okay,
bye guys.
See you next time.